So for the current school I'm at, I have 3rd through 5th grade here, the sequence of the science topics they will be covering. And I know precisely what the local school district standards are, science standards are that they are meeting. I also know there are state standards and national standards, but the local standards derive from them. And those are usually thick books like this. This is a page or two, and I can handle that. I can handle that. Then when I have the first meeting, it's a crucial meeting, and I really think I have to prepare for it. First thing I do after I get into the room and we've done our typical introductions and chit-chat, I ask the teacher for the copy of the scope and sequence and the curriculum that they're using. I don't only say I want it, I ask for it. She says, because I've dealt only with women teachers so far, they say, okay, I have it. And I then say, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me about it? I put a high value on teachers and their judgment. Then I spend a little time sharing my educational philosophy, knowing that it's good for them to know that I have a family that enjoys science at a variety of levels, and I have a feeling for what happens in a science classroom and in a non-science family, as well as that science family. And then I spend the rest of the time talking about areas from which I try to draw from the teacher those areas of science where I might be most useful. The teacher has had my vita. They know a little about me. So I give them a grounds for making a good conversation. And then we move to talking about what equipment's available if I want to do these kinds of science things. And then I can see, do they have their equipment organized? Is this all old cookbook stuff? Is it defunct science series material? What can I bring? What can they bring? And then I work with that. Then I get to the time frame that the teacher would like me to come, which depends upon their schedule when it's offered, and I try to meet their needs as much as possible. And then I review with the teacher what I'll be doing between the end of this meeting with them, my first meeting, and my first science session. And we keep in touch. And I have emails going back and forth so that it becomes more than just a relationship of I'm a scientist appearing in a classroom. Yes, I'm that too. But I've tried to become a very personal relationship because scientists, like it or not, are viewed as thinking they're about that much better than most people. Yeah. That's even too much. So you have to really work to overcome that. Then, as we leave, I say I'll keep up in touch with you via regular email contact, which usually gets to be bi-weekly at least. And during that time, I can send the teacher a rough draft of what I intend to do, and she can look at it and say, oh, I think you have to review some parts of this. I then say, okay, I need some vocabulary words from you that the teachers know, and the teachers are going to have given their students or will give them. If they've given the students vocabulary, I can use it. If I give them a vocabulary, I have to be a little careful about explaining it. So that's what we do on the off time. And then the first session. First question I was asked, and I was sort of dumbfounded, was, what shall I have the children call you? And now I say, well, you can call me Dr. Succo, you can call me Mr. Succo, you can call me Wayne, which I would prefer. You can call me Mr. Wayne or Dr. Wayne. The students usually opt for Dr. Wayne. Hence, I become Dr. Wayne to them, and that's the term they use. It just smooths the way, and everybody knows the rules of the game. And then the teacher introduces me for 2 or 3 minutes and asks me, because she knows some of what I will talk about, to introduce how I got into science and about my family. The kids like to hear what my family's doing. And it's nice when I can talk about having grandchildren that are talking about going into science. No great-grandchildren yet, but 10 years from now I can do that too. Another thing I do is when students are taking data, I circulate among them, and I insist that the teacher circulate as well and try to do the experiment, because I see part of the ReSET scientist's responsibility as being aware that you're doing teacher professional development in a very subtle fashion. You don't call it that, you don't draw attention to it, but because the teacher knows you value them, they want to do as best they can, and they're happy to learn, and in the long run, I won't be there, they will be. So they can eventually, if they get enough proficiency, do it themselves. Very straightforward and simple. Then with about 5 minutes remaining in the class, I always take care to tell the teacher that I'm going to formally turn the class over to you. I'll bring it to an end so that you can summarize for them what you have seen as the critical concepts, the critical scientific skills they should remember. The teacher knows what they're going to be tested on. And therefore, to meet the science standards, she has translated that into the summary of what they should be paying attention to and remember. And it's been fun. It's been fun for me to do that. I've got some loose leaf stuff here, which I'd be happy to send anybody on request. It's, you know, electronic format. And one of the things that I'm reminded of is the data table for rocks and minerals. See, I always wear one of my bolos because there are minerals in there. You can do wonderful, lovely, artistic things with rocks and minerals and metals. Bear with me. There is a good representative example of the kind of data table you will find for determining the hardness of rocks and minerals in most textbooks, in most lab manuals. Similarly, when I put some narrative material together for the teachers to give them background in terms of what I'm going to do and in terms of vocabulary, I do this. I'd like to show you what happens when I get there. I'm aware of it, but when I get there, the teacher says, this is what the students have for this activity. And I said, oh, the first time I saw it, she said, well, they have lab notebooks. And here they only have to cut this and put it in a lab notebook, which means it will be studied and used. I said, it's a great idea. And after considerable work, the data table boiled down to this. It's not a table format. It's in a format the students are used to. It's eventually going to look like column by column if you stack these up this way. But at the 4th and 5th grade level, this is a data format much more useful. So in summary, what I try to do is let the teacher define for me what I should do. Then I draw upon my background. I go to sources like the exploratory cookbook. I have a variety of curriculum materials